I'm sitting down with Dani Reinhart, and she's a fellow Texas implant who is taking the Western fashion world by storm. And Dani, if we could start off this morning just kind of with you telling us a little bit about yourself, just to get things rolling.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be able to chat with you this morning. So as you had alluded to, I am a Texas transplant. So I was originally born and raised in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And then my husband and I were fortunate enough to get the opportunity to move to Texas about 5 years ago. And we haven't looked back ever since. I do always joke that Alberta, the province we're from, is a twin of Texas with the same love of the Western lifestyle, agriculture, farming, and rodeo. And so really when we got here, we were welcomed with open arms and have really fit in. I did grow up with horses all of my life. My parents were blessed with 3 daughters, so they started off with, buying us a pony, and it kind of took off from there. And so I do have a background where I showed and grew up in the local 4-H club, and then showed horses in AQHA and the NRHA. And then I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to be Calgary Stampede Rodeo Princess in 2013 as well, which really kind of blossomed my love for the Western lifestyle, agriculture, and Western fashion at that point. So that's a brief rundown on me in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I found Dani through listening to Kinsey's Roots Run Deep at NFR, and you mentioned a couple things I definitely want to come back to. But first, let's talk about NFR. It being in Texas, what were kind of your thoughts on everything that went down this year at NFR?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, I was thrilled, solely for the fact that they were able to provide something for the rodeo contestants. I mean, 2020 has been a year for all of us. And I think, even if there wasn't the shopping or there wasn't the fashion, but they were just able to provide, right, the Super Bowl, right, the NFR for these rodeo cowboys and cowgirls so that they could, have their big monumental end to their season. For me, that was probably, the biggest win of the entire fact that NFR was able to continue and be in Texas. But the fact that, Fort Worth and Arlington were able to pull off what they did with, the incredible, TV coverage that was accessible through RFD TV and the Cowboy Channel, and then, still have the shopping and still have the ability for fans to attend the rodeo. To me, I was blown away that they were able, to pull it off. I know it was a short time frame for them, but, I always believe if anyone's going to do it, Texas is going to do it right. And so overall, I was pleasantly surprised, but at the same time, I know Texans come together all the time to put on such great big events. So overall, it was an A+ in my book.
Yeah, I have to agree. Just the fact that they were able to have the sheer volume of attendance and the rodeo, like you said, and how all that played out. And I thought it was incredible in the baseball stadium, just how they had it all. I don't know if there was a bad seat in the house, honestly, with how it was all kind of laid out. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, like you said, Texas definitely pulled it off. And I've actually never been to NFR in Vegas, so I don't have a ton to compare it to. But we'll see, I guess, what the future holds for NFR. It sounds like we're going back to Vegas, but who knows, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was neat to see, right, the Texas quote unquote version of the NFR. I was fortunate enough to actually have been to the NFR in Vegas a few times, and Vegas is just a different place, right? You can't necessarily replace the casinos, the glitz and glam, and the fact no one sleeps. But I think I think having it in Texas, again, it had a different it had a different vibe, but I also think it provided the opportunity for a lot of folks that, you know, weren't necessarily able to travel to Vegas in previous years to be able to, you know, make the commute or do a weekend trip, just because it was more accessible being in Texas, and it was maybe even a little bit more family friendly than, you know, taking everyone to Vegas.
Right. Yep. I totally agree. I think it opened the doors for, like you said, some people who may not have otherwise been able to go and be a part of the experience. So that was really cool too. Switching gears a little bit back to some things you mentioned kind of in your intro. So you were part of the Calgary Stampede, which obviously that is a huge honor for those of you who don't know what that is. But touching on those who maybe don't know what we're talking about or have no rodeo knowledge, could you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So the Calgary Stampede is what we consider the greatest outdoor show on earth. And so it is a rodeo that spans across 10 days and essentially takes over the city of Calgary. I think we're on our 105th year. My math will be bad on this, but over 100 years, the Calgary Stampede has been in existence. It is a huge outdoor rodeo, and it has many different components, you know, similar to some of the bigger rodeos like Houston Rodeo. We do, you know, kick it off with a huge parade right in downtown of the city of Calgary itself. A really big joke is if you work downtown Calgary for those 10 days, you really don't work at all. Happy hour starts at noon, and then you go and walk over and enjoy all the festivities of the Stampede. And then we also have, you know, many other different activities throughout the grounds, not just the rodeo. We have, you know, shopping, you know, amusement park vendors. We have spectacular fireworks shows, chuck wagon races. I mean, it is a spectacle for sure. I highly recommend, if you have never been to the Calgary Stampede, to attend. It is a once in a lifetime experience. I am, of course, you know, slightly biased growing up there for so many years. But it does have the rodeo component, but there's a lot of different fun activities in and around the city and on the grounds, even for those of you that don't necessarily want to attend the rodeo or just don't or want to try something different.
Right. That's so cool. And what was your, I guess, I don't know how the right, like, what was your role within being a part of that?
So my role, so I grew up watching the Calgary Stampede Queens and Princesses. And so most rodeos in the United States have, one queen,
right.
You know, or Miss Rodeo Texas, or, you know, they have one title holder that represents their rodeo. Well, it is unique at the Calgary Stampede where they actually crown 3 girls. They have a queen and 2 princesses, and that's something that, you know, has been a staple of that particular part of their history for many, many years. And so I was fortunate enough to compete in 2013, and I was crowned as one of the Calgary Stampede Princesses. And as I alluded a little bit in my interview with Kinsey a couple weeks ago, it's really unique being able to experience, you know, essentially this 1-year commitment of your life, traveling the world, being an ambassador for a rodeo in the city of Calgary with 2 other amazing women. And so those girls, we are best friends, and we were in each other's weddings. You know, we've blossomed our friendship, you know, even after our year together. But it is unique, and, you know, not every rodeo kind of has that cool facet to their rodeo royalty, but is something that, you know, I will forever cherish, you know, those memories and those friendships.
Yeah, what a cool way to kind of be a part of something and have some built-in best friends while you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
What you mentioned, you guys got to travel all over the place. What was one of your favorite places that you guys went to?
Yeah. So we were able to go to the Houston, Texas rodeo, and we did go to many different places throughout Canada and the US our year, but to be honest, all of us love Texas. I don't know if it was the allure of Southern accents and cowboys, or, everything is bigger and better in Texas. This is obviously before, I had moved here. But we were so excited. We landed, and I have to say the Houston, Texas Rodeo Committee treated us like royalty in all senses of the word. I mean, they picked us up, I want to say, in the airport in this like truck limo thing that was decked out with like Texas banners and lights. And I mean, for us young girls, we're like this, we felt like celebrities. Like, this was fantastic. And the committee, they toured us around. I know the Houston Rodeo has a lot of shopping as well as the amazing rodeo, followed by a lot concerts right after each different rodeo performance. And so we were able to attend all of those. We were able to meet, Miss Rodeo America and so many other incredible folks that helped, put on the Houston Rodeo. So for us, it was really, just experiencing what the Houston Rodeo had to offer. We were fortunate enough to also be a part of Grand Entry one night and seeing, I think it's called Reliance Stadium when we were there, their big dome, how big it is and how small you feel when you're in that arena, right? Looking up and waving at everyone. And so for us, it was a huge highlight, mostly because, we love the warmer weather and, the Southern accents and the great food, but also because, we were able to be a part of such a cool event like the Houston Rodeo.
Yeah, that's incredible, especially, coming from Canada and being able to see that, which, like you said, Texas really does have that allure of, I don't know, it's something, I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm here, right? I'm here from California and fell in love with it and here to stay now. But the accents, the cowboys, all of that, it's something that you just can't explain until you see it for yourself.
Exactly.
So obviously rodeo was a big part of your life and kind of how you grew up and deep in your roots and everything. But now you are a model. And so being a model, fashion is clearly a big part of your life and what you kind of do. But what made you kind of pick Western fashion as the kind of route you wanted to go with all that?
Well, for me, it was something I could resonate with on a more regular basis. I did model when I was younger, and I did, hit a few roadblocks. I wasn't necessarily the tallest girl in the group, and my features were what they considered, very commercial looking, and so I wasn't going to make it on the editorial runway in Hong Kong by any means. And so with that, I had obviously, grown up loving, rodeo queens, their fashion, and what they exemplified. And so it kind of just blossomed for me as, being able to turn my own fashion from what I wore, chasing cows during the day to what I wanted to in the evening, and just kind of having transition of a few different elements back and forth. And so for me, Western fashion, especially once I got involved with the Calgary Stampede Rodeo Royalty, I learned so much more about myself, what I liked, what I didn't like in putting together Western outfits. And I realized, I had a passion for it. And modeling had always been this creative outlet for me. And so I thought, what better than to put two and two together and kind of start, quote unquote, my discovery of, being a Western influencer, if you want to call it that. I think that's a weird word. Content creator, model, whatever.
I know.
Whatever you want to call it. Yeah. It's a funny word. I don't know. I can't say it without laughing.
I know. I feel the
But
same way. And like, that's not my goal or anything. But somebody the other day was like, oh, you're trying to be an influencer. And I'm like, I'm not though. It's more of like the educational purpose. And if someone else can figure something out from what I'm putting out there, great. But the whole influencer thing, I don't know. It's a weird phenomenon that I don't really know how to interpret or take.
yeah, no, I 100% agree. I mean, from my perspective, I do it as a creative outlet. I have a 9 to 5 job, and I have discovered just, through taking a little bit more time for finding what gives me joy and what I'm passionate about, that, modeling and Western fashion and putting outfits together is something that, I I get excited about doing, and that I really enjoy kind of, working with photographers and trying to put together a vision. And so for me, it's really for, purposes of doing things that I'm passionate about. And if I'm able to post that and inspire other people, that's, an added bonus.
Right.
So I tell people, a few times that, the fact that you guys like my photos is like incredible in and of itself, that, you guys like, what I have put together that, made me feel happy or confident that day. So, yeah, it's interesting for sure. But I think, at the heart of it, it is something I'm passionate about. And so that's what I'll be sticking to from here on forward.
Yeah, and since we're kind of touching on the influencer realm of things too, how has social media maybe kind of helped you develop maybe more of this modeling career, or however you want to call it, I guess?
Well, I have to say the community on social media and then within Western fashion is so supportive. I have to say that, since I started out, reaching out to different brands, different influencers and models just for advice on how to get started or how to reach out to different brands, I have been welcomed with open arms and given endless amounts of support and advice. And to me, that's been huge. And without social media, I think it would have been a lot different for me to go to those different lengths to get those connections and meet those different individuals. And especially over the last year, the amount of amazing, horsewomen, influencers, models, business owners that I've been able to meet, has been bar none. And, for example, Kinsey, she lives in Arizona, and I've just secretly fangirled over her on Instagram for a couple years now. And while we, haven't necessarily been able to meet in person until a few weeks ago, right, being able to, share different stories over social media or just see the cool things that you get to experience, on her side of the world in Arizona versus mine, is really neat, is a really neat part about social media, and something that I know I really value.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think exactly like you said, the community that's social media has kind of built and allowed for is incredible. And I think that has a little bit something to do, obviously, with the agricultural and the Western individuals who are obviously on the other side of the phone or the computer or whatever it is. But the fact that the platform has allowed for the community to grow, I think, is incredible. And being able to talk to people all over the world and have those connections and the support, I think, is what's really, really awesome. Especially, women in agriculture and women in the Western industry being able to have that kind of outlet to connect on and share stories has been crazy. Personally, I know, at least.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. It is one of a kind.
So I talk to a lot of women, obviously, who are tied to agriculture and the Western lifestyle. And the kind of common message that I've started to see is that, we've always been involved in these industries, but now more than ever through social media and other routes, we're kind of starting to pave our own way. How have maybe you seen that as some of the projects and businesses that you've worked with? And then maybe even personally too, kind of through everything.
Yeah, I think, it's been really exciting to see, how the Western way of life has expanded and grown over the last couple of years. And it might seem silly, but, even from the point of mainstream fashion and having, the Western ties with fringe and cowboy boots and cowboy hats, and how that is like all of a sudden start to become a thing that's been really popular, to, even having, to a degree, the Western way of life, showcased on a TV show that's been successful like Yellowstone.
Yep.
And how that has even brought a new look or understanding to folks about the Western way of life, to then, as you've stated, having, social media, I think more than ever has brought an even bigger light on the farming and ranching communities and their value, to all of us as a whole. And so, to your point, I think it's just continued to expand and grow in different areas. And for me, it's really exciting, because I think as the Western industry starts to continue to grow, there's different areas, people can resonate with on a different level, and they don't necessarily have to be involved in the Western industry or, have direct ties to it. But, something as simple as, Western fashion, someone may, take a liking to a certain look or follow a certain influencer, and get started in learning more about the Western industry through something just as small as, sharing where your boots are from. And so for me, it's really exciting where the Western industry is going, and just how big and how many people we're going to be able to continue to touch as it continues to grow. And to your point, again, it just emphasizes how important, right, the platforms of all of these amazing, women and men are, that are involved with the Western way of life and agriculture, and, the light we are now able to share and shed on, the true incredible values of our Western lifestyle agricultural communities.
Yes, I think that's exactly yes, 100%. Exactly what you said. And I think too, it kind of puts a little bit more of a pressure on maybe some of us, where, hey, people are paying attention now, and maybe where they haven't paid attention before. So not, fabricate stories or anything like that, because I think the beauty behind everything is being transparent and how things really are, and the reality of things. But, just kind of being aware that, hey, this is something that other people are starting to pay attention to, is something to note as well, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. More than ever, I think, social media is a blessing, but it's also very powerful. And I think, how we use it can be so special. But with that, right, comes, the importance of sharing appropriate messages that are respectful and tie back to, right, our Western and agricultural values. And it's important to us.
Yes, absolutely. Switching gears here just a little bit right before we kind of wrap things up, Dani. But Western fashion obviously has lots of different facets, different trends within it. But what's maybe one of your favorite trends or styles within Western fashion?
Well, right now, I have to say the blazer trend in Western fashion is by far my favorite. I have been a blazer girl my entire life. When I was 21 years old, I bought my first blazer thinking it was like this amazing adult decision that I have made. I'm now, a real woman, work woman at that time. And, as mainstream fashion, has taken that and kind of put it in Western fashion, I am all here for it. I have a closet full of blazers. I love how we can style them to make them more casual or make them, really fancy for a night out. And so For me, while that may be a quote unquote trend for the interim, I hope it's here to stay forever because I have so many blazers that I want to show off and use. I want it to be around for a while.
Yes, I'm a big fan of the Blazers too. I had to laugh because I haven't done anything this year. I mean, as most people have not. But NFR was like the first time I was like, oh, I can like play around with some different styles here. And so I broke out the Blazers, and I livestock judge in college. And so I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to a livestock judging contest wearing this blazer. But then everyone else had blazers on. So I was like, okay, I'm in style right now.
Yes. No, I have to say, I think that thought also crossed my mind a few times. Like I felt like a horse judge,
Yes.
or like a public, like some kind of judge, right? That's always dressed up with a wild ride or whatever. You felt like you were, I don't know, older maybe,
Right.
In dressing that way. But I'm with you. I mean, everyone, when I was down at the NFR, I mean, there were so many and great styles, right? For making it really professional to way more relaxed, you know, even with a t-shirt and shorts and that kind of thing. So I love where everyone's taken it, but I'm so with you on the initial times, right, getting dressed. You're like, this reminds me of a simpler time in my life.
Well, Dani, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I have loved getting to know a little bit more about you. And I hope that those who maybe are listening got a different kind of side of some things that we usually talk about on the podcast. So Dani, again, thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule. And oh, before I forget, where can people find you to connect with you? Either social media, website, any of that fun stuff.
Yeah. So you guys can find me on Instagram at Dani, Dani.Reinhart. And you can find me on Facebook at Danielle Reinhart. Those are the two main platforms that I use. And I would say I use Instagram more frequently. So if you would love to chat or reach out, that's probably your best bet.
Perfect. Well, Dani, thank you again. And I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was a fantastic chat with you. I really enjoyed getting to share my story, and I hope you and your family have a very happy and safe holidays as well.